Hello, Kelly Williams here, exercise physiologist and founder of Entirelyfit and a holistic wellness coach with the International Association of Wellness Professionals. And today I want to talk to men about strength training or resistance training, whatever you want to call it. And specifically about 5 tips that I think you should consider doing before you start a resistance training program. And I'm not just talking about guys that are beginners at strength training. I'm talking about guys that also have a lot of experience with weights and weightlifting and strength training, maybe even been athletes, but for whatever reason in the last several years, they haven't been as active as they want to be or should have been, and they haven't been exercising and doing strength training, but they're about to start back again. That's an important group to consider these 5 tips. And before we do that though, let's just talk about the benefits real quick. There are so many benefits associated with strength training, way beyond building muscle mass and getting stronger. For example, it improves balance, it improves posture. For men, definitely, it increases your testosterone level. It reduces your risk for chronic diseases like diabetes and other diseases. It also really helps with anxiety and depression, plus you get stronger. So think about all those great benefits. So if you're not doing it and you're considering it, I highly recommend it. But before you do, if you don't get off on the right step or the right track with resistance training, you do run a risk of getting an injury. And so anytime you're moving a load of any kind, there's that risk. And these 5 tips are really to help you reduce that risk. A lot of times the reason why people get hurt lifting weights can stem from bad technique. It could be that they just aren't strong enough to do some of the things they're trying to do. Maybe they're lifting too heavy, and there's really no need for that. And but you know how guys are. Everything's a competition. But try to get away from that. Also, poor rest, bad nutrition, and then also specifically weakness in our core and our low back, and that type of an imbalance or weakness. The core is where all of our movement comes from. And if we have weakness in our trunk and our core region, we really do run the risk of developing bad movements and run the risk of getting hurt. So let's get into these 5 tips. So the first one is I highly recommend that you get an evaluation. Go and find yourself a reputable, a really good physical therapist that's sport-minded or that has a specialty in sports, another type of medical professional that is a sports, that has a real focus on sport or exercise, and get an evaluation. It would be great if you could find someone in your area that is certified to perform a Gray Cook functional movement screen. That type of professional can identify imbalances in your movement patterns that can be corrected. And that's really important when you start putting a load or resistance associated with your movement. And that's the whole basis behind strength training. Number 2, I recommend that you talk to your physician and get approval. Rule out any kind of issues like high blood pressure or something that might need to be addressed before you start lifting weights. And it could even be something related to a joint issue that you have. Maybe you want to get that type of thing looked at first as well, but get approval there. Third thing, find yourself a good, reputable personal trainer or strength coach that can coach you on some technique that will help you as you progress. And that will be beneficial down the road. Just think about a golfer who has a very bad swing, yet they go to the driving range every week and practice hitting golf balls expecting to get better when the foundation of their swing is not good. That same thing can apply to strength training or any other skill. You want to get the foundation of your movement in place first, and then you can build on that. That's really important, related to the number 1, the eval, and number 3, getting some coaching from an experienced professional on lifting. Number 4 is really taking the advice of these professionals and develop a good core strength before you start lifting a lot of heavy weights. We're talking about your abdominals, your obliques, your low back, your spinal extensor muscles that keep you upright, and your glutes, and even your shoulders in terms of your core, and really getting a sound foundation, because that's where all your movement originates from. And then lastly, work on your flexibility, both some dynamic flexibility and static flexibility, just to make sure that your joint range of motion is where it needs to be. So if you do those 5 things, I promise you that you will get off to a great start with your strength training program. Now let's talk a little bit about how you determine the right weight that you want to use. And it could be, down the road, you may be doing some barbell lifts. You might do a lot of dumbbell exercises in the beginning. You could even be doing some kettlebell exercises. And all of these things do take some practice and getting good at doing them. But when people ask me what is the best weight to use in a weightlifting program, you need to find a weight in each exercise that you can do at least 8 to 12 times. And what I mean there is, if I picked up this 35-pound dumbbell to do a bicep curl, especially with the fact that I've got a sore elbow right now, I might not be able to do that without sacrificing technique 8 to 12 times. And so that weight would be too heavy for me to start with in that particular exercise. It might be fine if I'm doing a dumbbell press from the bench, but it may not be good for the bicep curl. So I want to find a weight that's a little lighter that I can do at least 8 times, and then something that's getting more challenging around 12 or 13 times, and kind of shoot for that range. So in the beginning, it's going to take a little practice identifying which weights to use in each exercise that you're doing. I recommend doing a full body workout, starting with your more complex moves first and your bigger muscle groups. And so, for example, the other thing that you can do is you can pair up opposing muscles. So I could start with a good warm-up, get my circulation going, get all my muscles warmed up, do some light stretching, primarily dynamic stretching in the beginning. And then I could do a warm-up exercise for my chest, and then a warm-up exercise for my lats and my upper back, and then start my first set. I would typically recommend doing 2 to 4 sets of an exercise in that 8 to 12 rep range. So I would do my chest exercise, then my back, and then my chest and my back, and repeat that until I finish that group. Resting a little bit is needed, but by alternating those muscle groups, you reduce your rest time and you reduce your overall workout time. So that's beneficial. And then move to maybe your shoulders, biceps and triceps, then your core, and then your legs. So that could be a typical routine. You could start with your legs first, and then your core, and then your upper body. That's fine. And then after 4 to 6 weeks of doing these things and really practicing your technique, getting a little bit stronger, and getting used to this type of workout, then you can start experimenting with increasing the weight, maybe on your 2nd and 3rd set or your 3rd and 4th set. You can start experimenting with some new exercises. If you've primarily been using dumbbells, maybe you can start doing some things with barbell and plates. You could add in some kettlebell training. You could start playing around with a chin-up bar and maybe learning how to do some body weight chin-ups. You can definitely be doing push-ups and things like that. So getting that good foundation and starting off right in the beginning is very important. So I hope that helps. I hope you benefit from that information and you find some good professionals in your area that can get you started. Until next time, be well, be grateful, and keep working on being entirely fit. Have a great day. Bye.